that food is important. And next to, followed closely by shelter is one of the two things we all need to survive. And that everyone deserves it, no matter what their situation is. If you're going to battle whatever challenges you have ahead of you or that the day brings, you need sustenance to be able to do that.
Ain't it great? Season 8. We're back with the No Dishes podcast. Once again, brought to you by our friends at Visit Bloomington. Check them out at visitbloomington.com. It's a great resource, even if you're just a local looking for something to do. Also, all of our other advertisers on this episode, they help make this whole thing possible, so please show them some love. Anyways, play that theme song.
Hey, say, honey, let's go out to eat. Relieve our culinary duties. With all these restaurants to sweep us off our feet, they're bound to turn us into foodies. No dishes, no dishes, no dishes. We'll have a bottle of wine for lights and have a good time. No dishes, no dishes.
All right, we're here talking about the Chef's Challenge coming up August 3rd. This amazing fundraiser raises funds for the community kitchen, who does so much great work in our community. And here to talk about it, the assistant director at the community kitchen, Tim Clougher. How are we doing, bud?
Hello, I'm doing great. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, man. It's love the Chef's Challenge. I got to judge it 2 years ago. Garrett and his wife went last year. Used to be in the Buskirk. That was at Ivy Tech. But we got a lot of stuff to talk about this year. So it's the day after Taste. So Taste is August 2nd. Community Kitchen Chef's Challenge, August 3rd.
Big weekend.
Big weekend. And then MCCSC goes back to school that week.
Yep.
So we're just sneaking in all the fun right at the very, very end.
Yeah.
But it's a great way to try like really good food from really amazing chefs and support a great cause, most importantly.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about how long Chef's Challenge even has been around.
We started in 2007. We had a couple COVID years, so 2020, 2021, we didn't do the event. But started in 2007, and we were basically looking at fundraising ideas, and I'd noticed that Second Helpings up in Indianapolis did an event originally they called it Indianapolis's Iron Chef.
Oh,
and then they got a cease and desist, and they switched the name to Indy's Ultimate Chef. And they only did the fundraiser a couple years. I never got to attend it. The year I was going to go, they canceled it. But I reached out to them about doing a similar event in Bloomington, and they were very gracious and shared the pantry and the rules and how they did it. They did it in a similar size venue as the Buzz Chum and the Cabaret Theater up there, so about 600 people max. And we just kind of went with it. I mean, I liked the idea when I was looking around at different events because it really fits well with the kitchen and what we do, and actually even a lot of the people we serve. Whenever you go to make something and you're missing that one ingredient at the kitchen, we run into that a lot. We just have to kind of on the fly figure it out or do something different or do something with a twist. And that's what it is for a lot of people that we serve, too. If they are making a meal at home, they often don't have all the things they need, and therefore they just kind of go with the simplest thing. And so I thought it was a good match as a fundraiser just because of that basic concept. And also, we get a lot of support from the local restaurant community and businesses and people in the industry. And I mean, for so many chefs and cooks and people that work in restaurants in town, they'll work 5 or 6 days a week. And we've had many of them, often on their one day off, come in and volunteer at Community Kitchen. And it's a special type of person that likes being around food that much. So I kind of see it as a win-win, a giving back, as well as kind of, focusing on the kitchen and what we do a little bit. I consider us part of the local food industry, just because we are feeding people and get inspected by the Board of Health, and the only difference is we don't charge anything, and it's totally anonymous. So
yeah, you got a front of house, you got a back of house.
Yeah,
it's I've volunteered for some of the brunches that you guys have done, and the back of house team. You have some incredible chefs that are back there donating their time to come up with these dishes. The front of house, we have it easy. We're just running it out, filling up drinks, and talking with people. But it's just they're really fun events to do. We might be able to talk about those a little bit more as well. Tell us that first year. You're starting out the Chef's Challenge. You reach out to Second Helpings. They're giving you ideas, showing you how they've done it. What was that first year like? Just getting it established and educating the public about what it was.
Yeah, the first year was, it was nerve-wracking, of course, but also exciting, just kind of modeling it after their event. It was nice to have a little bit of a roadmap of what we could do. And Indianapolis is big, so, doing an event similar to what they can pull off, that was kind of the big question mark. But we have enough restaurants in Bloomington and enough foodies per se that I didn't think it would be an issue. And back then, 17 years ago or almost 20 years ago now, without the COVID, there was a pretty vibrant food scene and food crowd. We still have most of that, but trying to figure out what they would do, what the rules would be. Daniel Orr farm hadn't opened yet.
Oh, wow.
But I'd heard about Daniel Orr coming to town, and so I was looking for like celebrity judges, and reached out to his publicist or manager or somebody at the time, and he was up for being one of the judges. Then there was a guy, Steve Mangan, who worked for Sodexo, who was doing the food at IU, and he had judged events before, so he was interested. And I think Lynn Schwartzberg might have been the other judge with the HT. So I had people with some experience. Steve Mangan was great. I think he wound up going up to Northwestern and running all the food service up there. But, once we had that end figured out, I kind of bounced things off of those folks. And then getting chefs to cook with just a 2-burner stove and a Wolfgang Puck Sam's Club electric skillet and limiting them to just that equipment. Trying not to break down and let someone bring something else that would give them an advantage. And Steve Mangan at one point was like, they should just get a chef's knife and that's it, and it was just like, no, it's like, we need to do more than that. So, and then getting some sponsors, getting support. I reached out. I wanted to really focus on local, and especially for the secret ingredient. I went to the farmer's market, and I got to say, and you won't be surprised, but there was nobody that said no at the farmer's market. When I told them about the event and what we were doing, and they all wanted to help. By contributing. So lots of produce from people there. And it just all came together. Probably the thing I was most nervous about was setting off the sprinklers in the Buzzkirk Chumley, because, a cooking competition, and they did not disappoint as far as once the pork and things go on that electric skillet, that theater was filling up with smoke. And fortunately, the ventilation system, they're used to having smoke for shows and things like that. We did put the fire alarm in test mode just so, the fire department wouldn't, they would come, but it wouldn't mean there's a fire. And it all worked out. The event went really well. I learned a lot from that first year. I think that first year, Jake Brenchley from Scholars Inn back in the day won. I think we had Rags from Nick's cooking, and the other might have been Alan Simmerman, who was at Blooming Foods at the time. So
awesome. What was the attendance and money raised like?
The attendance is always, hovered, and that's why we've kind of changed days and changed venues over the year. I think we've had as little as maybe 200, 250 people, and we've had as many as probably on the best year, close to 400. But the theater seats 600. You know, you have a lot of people that are sponsors or, you know, friends of the chefs and that type of thing. But that wasn't as, I mean, I'd always hoped it would grow, but I also kind of wanted it to be somewhat of a celebration of, you know, the restaurants. I like the idea, like we always had a discounted industry ticket. So if folks that were working in local restaurants or a distributor or whatever wanted to come to the event, they could afford easier to come to the event. And then a lot of times the restaurants of participating chefs would buy bunches of tickets. And, you know, I think Rags probably brought the most people ever that first year. I mean, the whole balcony was Nick's folks, I believe, and patrons. Awesome. But Feast Market always, you know, brought quite a few people. They were in the event several different times, both Erica and several of the chefs that they had there, including up to Eric.
Yeah, well, I remember, I think it was 2 years ago, you guys were bidding off the plates.
Yeah.
For, you know, and they were just bidding up Eric Bueno's. There was a lot of Feast contingent there, and Eric's an amazing chef that would have naturally gotten that anyway, but you could tell some of it was just people they know, like, yeah, we're going to bid this up. We're raising money for a good cause. I get to try this food that I just watched them make.
Yeah.
So though I feel like we've explained it fairly well, but you have 3 chefs. It's Iron Chef style. They get this mystery ingredient that they don't find out until right before, and then they have the stations that you described. And they go, was it 15 minutes staggered?
Yeah, it was 15 minutes, just so the food didn't all come out at the same time for the judges primarily. The events changed somewhat, but when we started out, they were just making the bistro seats. I think people paid $100 for one of those seats. I mean, we auctioned those off, so sometimes they went a little bit higher than that. And we had, I think it was 5 tables of 6. So they had to do a family style thing for about 30 people, plus the judges, plus some plates to auction off. I mean, Brad Wilhelm, he was the MC for most of the years. And, I mean, that guy would auction off a carrot, you know, I mean, in between, you know, different things going on, he was always auctioning things off. So that was the setup. The pantry grew quite a bit just because with the quantities of food, you don't know what the chefs are going to use. So you have to have enough for each of them to potentially use it. There were a few years where the proteins were a little bit more scarce. So if all 3 of them wanted to use pork loin, whoever went third might be out of luck. I mean, we used to pick spaghetti, you know, and whoever got the short spaghetti was, you know, that would, and the next shortest, that was our first, second, and third as far as order. We would take the chefs downstairs or off stage to the green room where they couldn't hear the secret ingredient being announced. So once they got up there, they could probably figure it out by watching the other chef, but they only had a few minutes to talk. And it was always really fun to go down to the green room for that second and third chef, because I would have usually one of the secret ingredients in my hand, like garlic, for example, is the one that comes to mind. One year we had a guy that was competing, trying to remember where I think he might have worked at IU. He was a pastry chef. And him and his, I won't mention his name, but him and his crew, his partner, his sous chef, really thought it was going to be fruit, you know, and because they asked if they could bring dry ice, and I know they were going to try to make some type of sorbet or ice cream or something, but I had already picked garlic as the secret ingredient. So when I went down to get them and I had a bulb of garlic, both of them were just oh no.
They're like, we're going all in. Yes.
Yeah. And that's really, I think any chef would say that's the toughest part because, and again, it kind of works like at Community Kitchen. You know, when our cooks come in each day, you know, you have an idea what your protein's going to be and what you're going to make. You're going to serve 300 people. You have from 11 basically to 2 to get that prepared, however many hotel pans that's going to be. And it's tricky because, you know, there are other ingredients. Like, for example, I wanted to make, Cajun chicken one time, and we had no Cajun spices, but we had Montreal chicken spices. So Montreal chicken is what it became.
There you go.
But yeah, so coming up with a plan, but being able to, switch it up if, the ingredient isn't what you've thought. So
Well, it's such a great fundraiser. For everything that you mentioned, the correlation between what happens during the fundraiser, during the event, and what happens every day when you guys are feeding these hundreds and thousands of people, I just had, it's such a fun environment at the Buskirk. And then last year you're at Ivy Tech. Where are we this year?
So this year we're going to be at Woolery.
Nice.
We've looked at doing it at Woolery for years. And we worked it out with them. Unfortunately, like Ivy Tech was great because each chef had a full kitchen set up. But it was a bit challenging as far as the distance that the chefs were from the audience and the crowd. And that kind of proved to be a challenge. But we partner with Ivy Tech on brunches and different events, and they've always been great supporters. So it was definitely worth trying it out there and kind of shedding some light on their programs and what they do. But yeah, we decided to go with Woolery, try something a little different. It's, tickets are going to be more limited than the theater, kind of stepping away from the, theater built situation where everyone's kind of focused on the event and giving people the room to kind of move around a little bit. We'll have auction items there, have hors d'oeuvres and so forth. We're providing, the appetizers, the salad, that type of thing for the meal. And then the chefs are going to be limited to really just having to make a main course. So they'll have to make that main dish and highlighting the secret ingredient, and make enough that there's enough for the 3 or 4 judges, and then enough to serve family style 100 people.
Oh, wow.
So
okay.
Last year we tried, because we wanted everyone to be able to try something that each chef had made. I mean, when you go and it's like you're there rooting for a certain chef, and you want to do that, be able to do that comparison like they do on the shows. They're trying the different competing chefs, whether it's Chopped or Iron Chef or one of the other many programs. So letting individuals be able to kind of try out each chef's fare. And so that's what we're hoping to accomplish this year. Again, last year, it kind of got a little chaotic because we had each chef do 3 dishes of 35 portions. And then, once we started bringing the food out, trying to figure out who got what and didn't get what. And, some people, what wound up happening, which actually worked really well, was people just started sharing stuff from table to table. But then the staff, the volunteers that were bringing the food out, would look and be like, well, how did that get there? Did
they were supposed to get this. Yeah.
So we try to get rid of some of that confusion and just have the chefs, focus on one dish. I also kind of heard from the chefs that it made it more of a race, where they were just trying to get done, as opposed to really kind of crafting the one dish that they were focused on. Now, the reason I think while it's a high bar, it certainly would be for me to produce that much food. The people I've learned, the chefs that thrive on that kind of thing, that's just all in a day's work.
Yeah.
So, I recall, I think it was Dave Talent, one of the years he won. And back then, of course, they were just making the 40 or so, 35 or 40 servings. But he made 5 different dishes, one challenge, with the secret ingredient in an hour.
That's insane.
What they can do, you should never you or I might be like, oh,
how could you?
How would I do that? But they can pull it off. It's pretty amazing. So I'm excited about seeing what they come up with.
Yeah. Now, Chef Talent, did he win 3 times in a row and essentially kind of retired? Or are you wanting to move better, feel better, and live better? Look no further than Move Bloomington, where their small group personal training programs are designed to improve strength, balance, and flexibility. With a welcoming environment, their expertly guided workouts can help you feel supported in the life and activities you love in and out of the gym. Whether you're new to exercise, a lifelong athlete, or anywhere in between, their dedication to personalized programming will deliver sessions that meet you where you are. Get started today using the code NODISHES to get 50% off their 3-session Kickstart program.
He won twice, and then he judged. And Dave's a good friend, and if you know him at all, you know that he is not really an extrovert, so he's not one to, so when I asked him to judge, because it's like we hadn't had anyone win a couple times, and so it's like, well, do we have him just compete again? Is anyone going to beat Dave? Like, what happens if he just keeps winning? So we decided, okay, after you win 2 years that you would judge.
Okay.
And so he wasn't real excited about that, but he also saw it as easier than having to do the cooking.
Yeah. I can help out this great event without actually.
So he did that, and then he came back, I think, a year or two later after judging and won a third time. I think we had mushrooms was the secret ingredient that year. But we also had Corbin Morwick at One World, won a couple of times. I feel like Lake Hubbard, who used to be at Uptown, he won a couple of times. Feast Market won several times, but with sous chefs, 2 different sous chefs, and Eric Bueno, once or twice. And then Erica was in, I think she's been in 3 or 4 of the challenges, sometimes as the sous and sometimes as the chef.
Huh. Yeah, I mean, I felt very fortunate to be able to judge 2 years ago, and just being on the Buskirk stage was really cool. And then I've got Angela Pizza with me. I got Stacy from Ivy Tech, and then the guy that owned the farm that you got the carrots from.
Yeah.
And so that was really cool. And then just to see watching them the whole time, I'm like, I'm not a chef, I'm not qualified, but I mean, I eat out a lot. So once I started tasting, I'm like, okay, maybe I'm qualified. But the whole time I'm watching, I was like, I don't know. Like, they all look super impressive. But it was Corbin Morwick from One World, Dan Thomas from The Elm, and Eric Bueno from Feast. And like, talk about a loaded lineup. Yeah. Like, all 3 of those guys just absolutely crushed it. Dan ended up coming out on top, but it was, they were so close. It was all so good.
Yeah. Yeah. And typically they've all been pretty close. I know that the judges have often struggled, especially when they do more than one dish. Sometimes that can work in your favor, and sometimes it kind of knocks you down a little bit. But generally, when people have done at least 2 or 3 different dishes. So this year will be interesting with one dish. I'm sure in a way it'll be kind of hard for them not to do that. But the fact that they're making 100 portions. I mean, if you do the math, it works out to basically what they did last year, and I think a little easier, just because instead of doing 3 different things,
just one thing,
doing one.
Right.
But at the same time, that means that one thing,
you got to nail it.
Yeah. It's got to be pretty good.
Yeah. No. So are tickets already on sale?
I think so. I think they're available through the Community Kitchen website. So, and as I mentioned, they're $100. Let's check that out and see. But
yeah, Gary, what's that say? Is it MonroeCommunityKitchen.com?
Yeah.
Yeah.
If
where do I go on here?
What's that?
Where do I go on here on Monroe County?
It would be under events, kind of in the middle there. It may not. Oh, doesn't look like it's there yet.
Not yet. Now, but keep an eye out on it. It's on the Community Kitchen website. You'll be able to buy tickets. There's a limited number. Like you mentioned, much smaller than the past. So if you want them, get them early. $100 each. You're supplying appetizers, and then there'll
be a cash bar. There'll be a variety of appetizers from different restaurants in town, as well as One World is working with us on that. It's a beautiful facility. If you haven't been there, I encourage people to come out. It's kind of Randy Cassidy's tribute to the quarry industry. It's also, where the Beer Fest has been and other events out there that I've attended, but it's a beautiful space. They've assured me that even with a lower ceiling than the theater, that cooking out in the big room isn't going to be a big deal. You'll definitely be smelling the smells of whatever the chefs are up to. And I like the idea that it's all going to be in one room.
Yeah.
And people are going to have the ability to kind of move around, and it'll be hard not to be focused on the event. We'll have some screens with like better shots like right above the chefs of what they're actually doing at each station. So it'll be easy for people to kind of be in any place in the room and have a sense and be able to see what's going on.
Yeah, I mean, it's a great venue. And One World operates it. Jeff Meese, their whole team is incredible. Yeah. We've catered Chocolate Mousse over there. I've DJ'd over there. I've attended things there. So much stuff happens over there.
I picked up a lot of leftovers there for the kitchen.
Oh, yeah.
They're very, very generous when they have food. I mean, that's one of the things that's easy for us to rescue, us or the Hoosier Hills Food Bank. If there are, pans of lasagna for a wedding or whatever it might be for an event, if it doesn't get put out or served, that winds up oftentimes going to the kitchen and being used. In
That's
our
awesome.
meals.
Yeah, and a lot of people forget during COVID, they were providing free lunches for people.
Yeah.
You could just go over there and just get free food. And I always like to remember that One World did that during that tough time and how great that was.
Yeah, and got a lot of support from other restaurants that were bringing them the food that they had in their walk-ins and freezers, to be able to utilize. And I met with Jeff, reached out to me right, when the hit the fan there, and we talked about, he asked what we were doing, and I think he was just kind of gauging like what support we might need, and then recognized that we were in good shape. We just simply moved to a carry-out only thing at our dining facility, but put up our shields, and we, let our volunteers just take a break during that time. A lot of our volunteers, as you might imagine, are elderly or at risk. And a lot of our staff worked part-time at their other job, was in a restaurant. So a lot of those places were closed. So we actually paid our staff to come in and work and cover the volunteer shifts. And that also, kept us on a rotation where if somebody got sick, the whole shebang didn't go down. So, but Jeff that was a monumental thing to provide meals for industry folks, not only for his own crew, but for anyone that worked in any restaurant that needed that support.
For sure. Yeah. I mean, I remember sending a thing out to like all the local restaurants, and we had a call, and he's like, here's what we're doing. Here's what we think's happening. Feel free to do your own, but just so you know. And it was nice to be on that call with so many different local restaurant owners and operators on like, here's what's going on. I mean, because it was the fear of the unknown,
Yeah.
Who knew?
Knew.
Is this 2 weeks? Is it going to be 2 years?
Right.
We were talking before we started, you've got 2 of the 3 chefs already for this year lined up?
Yeah. Adam Knopfsinger, who won last year. A lot of people don't know him, and that's another great thing about the event, unless your name is on the restaurant like Dave Talents was, a lot of people don't know who the chefs are or don't have a visual of the chefs. So getting them out there, Adam Knopfsinger bartended originally at the Uptown, and then when Michael and Galen found out about his training and his skills, because he's chefed all over the world.
Oh, yeah.
Know if you've
so he sat right there.
Oh, okay.
Him and Vivi came on.
Oh, yeah.
The power actually went out in the middle of that episode from a storm, and they had to come back another day, and we finished it.
Yeah.
But Adam, go watch that episode if you haven't. The Uptown Cafe one with Adam and Vivi. Adam's resume is insane.
It is insane.
Working with, I think right when COVID hit, he was working with like Virgin Cruises to come up with their fine dining menu. He opened up this like American steakhouse in Japan, worked at Michelin star restaurants.
Not knowing the language.
Yeah. Oh, just incredible. Yeah.
It just blows my mind. It was really something else.
Garrett's got it pulled up. But yeah, so Adam's incredible talent, and he won last year. And like I said, Garrett and his wife, Monica, went and I was DJing a wedding. And so I didn't get to be there the whole time, but I showed up and got to try some of the food, and it was all just like, I mean, you're supporting a great cause, you're getting to try great food, and you're finding out about these chefs that, again, maybe Adam's fairly new to town in the grand scheme of things.
Yeah.
Seeing that the talent that we have in this, which is what this podcast is all about,
Yeah.
in this local restaurant industry.
Yeah.
So you're already 1 for 1 with Adam Knopfsinger.
Yeah. And then Eric Bueno, who's won before, and he's
the man.
Very talented guy.
That's an understatement. Yeah.
I think the last time he was in, I just remember him having on the camp stove. It's like a 50,000 BTU 2-burner camp stove, and he had this giant piece of charcoal that he had heated on that and was laying pork loin or pork cutlets on it to cook. You never know what that guy has up his sleeve.
Yeah.
They operate in that world of just like coming up with something and are really talented. It's really fun to see.
Well, like you said, Eric's won before. When he was at the helm at Feast, it was easily one of my favorite restaurants in town. It was so consistent. I think it's very noticeable after he left. People don't realize how much he was doing at Feast. He was the general manager. He was once they had sold to Endeavor before they sold to Mark Kang. He was doing the front of house, the back of house, and just meanwhile being one of the best chefs in Bloomington at the same time. But just very creative, incredible technical skill. And just watching him that time 2 years ago at the Buskirk, I'm just like in awe because I'd enjoyed so much of his food. He made the best burger I've ever had in my life.
Yeah.
So it's cool to watch these guys do what they're good at, you know? And then you're going to have a third, but we don't know exactly who that is
Yeah,
yet.
we should have that sealed by the end of this week. Just reaching out, trying to get, of course, someone that it's not the same people each year. So we've got a couple feelers out for some other folks that are out there and just waiting to kind of solidify that. So we'll have 3 chefs and then probably somebody in the wings that can step in as a backup. If somebody gets sick before the event or something like that, it's good to have somebody else that can jump in. Or I'll just say Seth Elgar. I'll put him on the spot.
There you go. Yes,
he's on our board, and he has jumped in before.
Oh.
We had an incident with a sous chef that had a health issue come up during the event, and Seth just donned the apron and jumped right in and became Bob Atkins' sous chef.
There you go. Yeah,
that was also the egg year.
Okay, yeah. Can we hear about the egg year?
The egg year was just.
I could just see it on your face.
Just trying to, the year that eggs were the secret ingredient, I knew it was a bad sign because when we announced the ingredient, Brad Wilhelm was the MC, and the idea was I was going to throw an egg to him, and he was going to like grab it above his head and break it or something, Anyway, I think he didn't quite catch it or something went awry. But anyway, trying to gauge the amount of things that the chefs need, especially the proteins. And that was the first time we did something other than a meat or a fish or something as the protein. Because again, I've stuck to mainly fruits and vegetables and herbs and different things for the secret ingredient. But I decided to go with eggs, and I got to admit, I could blame it on someone else. There was someone helping me shop that was a chef, but we really underestimated. Like, if you think about what chefs can do with eggs and how many eggs that might take, you need a lot more eggs than what we brought. I forget how much we brought, but it was not nearly enough. And which literally led me to, at one point, and I think pretty sure it was a Sunday night, the event that year, to running out into the street like John Belushi, looking like, where am I going to get eggs? And farm was still open.
Oh, nice.
And I ran in there and if you think about it, if you're working in the kitchen, some crazed man runs in.
I need your eggs.
With his eyes really big. I need some eggs. And they gave me like 3 flats of eggs.
Let's just get out of here.
So we were good.
Oh my, I love that.
They knew it was going on. So that helped. But yeah, that was also the year that one of the sous chefs just passed out. Like he was cutting potatoes up on stage, and then all of a sudden he wasn't there anymore. And fortunately, one of the bistro tables was all ER doctors. And so they were right, and we had at the time, a friend that was on the board that was an ER nurse. And so he was fine. Everything was good, but, we need to have him get checked out and stuff. And so Seth within 15 minutes, we were going again.
Wow.
Which is, quite impressive.
Feat, yeah. Well, just having someone of Seth's caliber as a sous chef is hilarious too.
Plus, it's eggs. So, of course, nobody wanted to kind of stop cooking because eggs, like everything, was in motion. It was right.
Mm-hmm. That's tough because you obviously care. You want to make sure they're all right. But You're like, we're already running low.
Yeah.
Okay, so August 3rd at Woolery Mill. Tickets on sale soon. Go to the Community Kitchen website.
Anything? And we'll announce it on social media with a link and so forth. So they should be up soon. I wasn't sure if they were up yet.
Yeah,
or not,
we'll find out. Yeah,
they'll be coming up soon.
And then there's also the brunches, which we talked about, where you have different chefs. They come in, they do 3 courses. Cardinal Spirits always does the drinks. Bridget, who's on the board, always ropes me in. Not a handful. Every now and then I'll take one off, but she's roped me into doing the front of house, and it's great. It's a fun time, but it's another way that you can support and get a cool experience out of it.
Yeah.
So check out their brunches that they do quarterly, I believe. And so those are always a really fun time. And you get to go in there and be in the building on South Rogers and kind of see what it's like.
We have it on Sunday. Sunday's the only day that we're not open and serving, our clients. And so it's a nice time to be able to see the space and contribute to supporting what we do. We have 2 seatings. Usually there's an 11 and a 1 o'clock. Again, it's fun, I think, for the industry folks, the chefs, and the other service folks that come in and help because they, get to collaborate together and work together in the same kitchen. A lot of people know each other. Bloomington's, culture kind of moves around a little bit from place to place. When I would go out to talk to chefs before the event, to get them to see if they wanted to be in the competition, I learned that I needed to go about 2 p.m. when they were kind of in between things, and that I needed to go and talk to them in person, because if I just sent an email or called, it's like, no, I don't, So showing up, as one chef said, with my pouty eyes and asking my puppy dog eyes, that was it, and asking if, they would compete, and they would usually be like, sure. But sometimes it was like going in a kitchen and asking about an old girlfriend or a boyfriend, is like, so-and-so here? Because sometimes they would have moved on to a different place.
Right.
Or, it happens a lot in the industry. So
Garrett pulled up the menu from the most recent one here.
Check. Coming to you this summer, it's the Smithville Communications Summer Concert Series in Ellettsville. Brought to you by B97 and Hoosier Country 105.
How's everybody doing tonight?
Enjoy live music every Saturday from May 24th through July 26th. That's 10 weeks of music every Saturday evening from 6:30 to 8. Located at the Marcy J. Lewis Park.
And did I mention it's free?
Dance the night away with the Smithville Communications Summer Concert Series in Ellettsville.
Better business, better community. For over a century, the Greater Bloomington Chamber of Commerce has been a cornerstone of business growth and community development. They are dedicated to helping local businesses thrive. Their business is all about your business. Join the Chamber today. Call 812-336-6381 or visit chamberbloomington.org to learn more. Which I wasn't at, but one of the best things, so just so people can see it and get an idea of kind of what's there. It's always really delicious, great stuff, 3 courses. The best part about volunteering for it, other than just like knowing that you're helping a good cause, is there's leftovers, and you get to try it all, and it's always so friggin' delicious.
Yeah, and there's always a vegetarian or gluten-free option, and that is, I might just throw out there with the Chef's Challenge. That is not always the case, because you don't know what the chefs are going to cook. So unfortunately, that means, if you come to taste the dishes, it's something to think about. It may be something that, and generally the proteins are a meat or a fish or,
right.
It's local again. So, but the proteins can be anything. We usually have a variety of them.
Well, I feel like people are going to be understanding with the structure of the event and what it is. Like, it's going to be hard to meet dietary restrictions, Yeah. So Community Kitchen, this is going to be a very loaded question. I'm just going to warn you.
Okay.
Obviously you guys do so much, all these different programs and things that you guys operate. Can you kind of tell me how Community Kitchen is funded, how it got started, and what you guys do just operationally?
Okay. I'll give you the long elevator ride.
Let's go. Speech. Yeah. We're going up floor 80.
Okay. So back in, I think it was 1983, there was a lady that lived in the neighborhood, McDowell Gardens, where Community Kitchen is, named Karen Chadwick. And she was a Depression era lady as a child, had lived through some of that. And back in, I think it was the early 80s, 1983, when we first opened. So 82 or so, she read a Newsweek article that was talking about how people were struggling and times were getting hard in the economy. And she was very concerned that things were going to go back to what she remembered growing up. So she actually went to this community meeting about support for folks over the winter time and pitched this idea of a place where people could go and get a prepared meal. I think at the time there were pantries and other places people could go to get some food, but there wasn't any place people could go and just sit down, AKA the old soup kitchen, and just get a prepared meal. And some other ladies joined her. It began at Monroe County United Ministries, which is up by Tri-North, and their facilities there. They have a daycare facility there. The kitchen is still there, their kitchen. But that's where it started in their off hours of providing meals a few days a week. They expanded for a year or so, also had a location in McDowell Baptist Church, which is where the climbing gym is now, Hoosier Heights. And then eventually wound up in the building right there where Friend's Place, the shelter, is. We shared half of that building. We had, I think it was about 1,600 square feet was half of that building. And so pretty small. That included the dining room, which turned into our prep area during the day. And then we served dinner eventually, 5 days or 6 days a week. And from there, it just kind of grew to where we are now. Eventually, it was just probably close to 12 years ago, we moved to our current facility, which originally had been a Wonder Bread distributor. The trucks would load up and go out on their routes from that building. We rehabbed the building, saved, I think the roof and the outside walls are the only thing that's original to it. And then we're in, I think it's about 5,300 square feet. So we had expanded. It's amazing what we did out of that 1,600 square foot facility. It's amazing what we do out of the 5,300, but the timing of it was perfect in that we really needed to expand. At that time, we had started doing a lot more programs that were focused on at-risk kids. A lot of people think of us mainly as providing a dinner meal from 4 to 6 each night. So we do that. And then at some point, about a year before I got to the kitchen, which was 24 years ago, they added the Express location on West 11th, which is a carryout location. But yeah, cranking a lot of food out of the place. We started doing a summer program for kids. We continue that to this day. Basically, kids that get free and reduced meals at school don't always have access to that nutritional food outside of school. So literally the day after kids get out of school until the day before they go back, we go and provide meals to them and 10 different neighborhoods, and also at like the Boys and Girls Club, New Hope Family Shelter, The Rise, Girls Incorporated, any place that needs either snacks, breakfast, or lunches, we provide those meals. Then the Backpack Buddies program started, which again is for kids to kind of supplement their family's food over the weekend. That program year after year has grown a little bit. The idea basically being with kids is that if we're going to change the picture of what we see in adults that are in crisis, especially around food, it's making sure the youth have the support that they need, they're able to get to the nutrition that they need so they can succeed, so they can reach their potential. A lot of people talk about soup kitchens as kind of a Band-Aid, just an emergency service. And literally that's what it started as. It's like if you're in need and have no place to turn, this is a place you can come and get a prepared meal. And it still is for a lot of folks. But if we're going to change the actual picture of what we see, that's why we began kind of focusing on kids. Still there for anyone, 6 days a week, but also giving kids this boost. And we collaborate, with other agencies, the Boys and Girls Club and Girls Inc., some of the places I mentioned. They're providing the activities and the life skills for these kids and teaching them art and music and different things. And we support them by doing that missing piece, which is providing the food. There's paperwork involved because a lot of the programs are USDA or government-based programs, but it allows us to be able to provide a service for them that would be challenging for them. And it allows them to focus on doing the things that they want to do to support the kids. So, we've grown quite a bit from Karen's, vision. I wish that she was still around to kind of see what we've gotten into, but we wouldn't be here without her. I mean, it was her forethought and her just desire to kind of change things that got us rolling. And there have been so many people over the years, different directors and staff and people that have, contributed, volunteers. I mean, we use, 15 to 20 volunteers a day at the kitchen. So a lot of regulars, a lot of people that come once, a lot of people that, maybe got support from the township or maybe got in a little trouble and need to work off some hours. All these different people come in. So, and financially, the bulk of our support, the biggest amount just comes from individuals in the community.
Wow.
I mean, not to be cliche, but Community Kitchen, therefore, I think, it's a perfect name for it because it's all of these things coming together. A lot of local businesses, a lot of big local corporations, realtors. People from all different walks of life that realize and support us. They feel, fortunately, that our agency has integrity and they know we're going to use that support the best way that we can in order to reach the most people and support the most people. So it's grown quite a bit, and it all adds up, whether it's someone that comes to get a meal that puts $1 in the comment box to somebody that, has to make an IRA contribution for their taxes and sends us $200. It all kind of goes in to support what we do.
Yeah, it's always fascinating. At the end of those brunches, they'll bring all the volunteers out and Vicky will run through some of the numbers.
Yeah.
And they're just like, they're cool to hear and all the different things. Everything you just rattled off, like the amount of stuff that you guys do and the amount of lives that you guys are positively affecting. When you're in that position, everyone has to eat. It's the core, how can you not get behind, just making sure people are fed? You know what I mean? It's just the most base mission that's so necessary for all the other ones to work. The fact that you can work with Girls Inc. and Boys and Girls Club and all these other great community partners. Hey, you guys take care of this part. We'll take care of this part. We'll do what we're good at. You do what you're good at. And it just makes the community so much better as a whole, having just dedicated servants like yourself,
Yeah. And the especially around food. I mentioned the restaurants and, the other not-for-profits around food. The Hoosier Hills Food Bank wouldn't be here without them. They collect and distribute the food. Their truck comes by 3 days a week. Our chefs are able, our cooks are able to shop off of the truck and get whatever produce or bread or whatever they can use. They have a rescue program that brings prepared meals by. We can utilize those and cold reheatable carryouts, or sometimes if there's enough, as one of our main dishes or a side dish. Both Beacon and Mother Hubbard's and Pantry 279, all those organizations, I think we're all really careful not to step on each other's toes, whether it's when we're planning an event where we're focused on a certain area. Beacon provides a lot of things that, the population needs that we're serving that we don't have the capacity to provide: showers, mailboxes, a place to hang out when the weather is bad. Whereas we've always just kind of focused on the food and mainly the prepared food. I think it's easy sometimes in communities for nonprofits to kind of compete, but that's not really the case here in Bloomington. I think it speaks a lot to the people that work in those agencies.
Yeah, I mean, we've seen the same thing with restaurants on here. Everyone gets along very well, and we've been fortunate. As you were rattling all those community partners off, I'm like, man, we've been slacking getting you on here because we've had Beacon, we've had Mother Hubbard's Cupboard, we had Jake from Hoosier Hills.
Yeah.
And it's been fun because, when we started out, we're like, okay, we're just covering restaurants. And we've started to break into the nonprofit world over the last few years. And you guys are doing so much that affects what we initially started covering. So it's awesome to just get the ins and outs because you see these things. I mean, I've lived in Bloomington for 16 years now, and just like about these organizations and you have a vague idea what they do, but to have people come on like yourself and Forrest and Megan to really talk about it, I don't know, it gets you like excited and you're just like, wow, there's way more good happening than I realized. And it's so easy to get caught up in just the negativity of life and all the bullshit going on. So it's nice to be like, this is good. These systems and people and processes are in place to help those in need.
Yeah. And it's nice to know what's going on. Oftentimes when I tell people what I do, and I'm sure other nonprofiteers get the same kind of response, which is like, oh, and I appreciate that. I think it fits in a lot of ways with what I do, but I also think the audience, your audience, and people that like food appreciate it, because if you like food enough to do a podcast or listen to a podcast or go to an event where they're cooking or buy an extra thing at Sam's Club and bring it by your, someplace you support, you recognize that, that food is important. And next to, followed closely by shelter is one of the two things we all need to survive, and that everyone deserves it no matter what their situation is. If you're going to battle whatever challenges you have ahead of you or that the day brings, you need sustenance to be able to do that. So it's all around just a really cool thing. And I know that people that like food can relate to that, and kids, too. I mean, that's absolutely an easy thing to get people behind. And, I like to feel like not as much of it happens in Bloomington, but the fact that in the country in general, depending on what you read, it's up to 40% of food that gets wasted in our country. I think there are a lot of places that have made an effort to stop some of that waste. Clougher is a great example. They support not only the agencies we've talked about, but also just by creating less waste. They have an initiative to not have as much waste. And while, we don't mind getting, that loaf of bread that's close to date or that, box of apples that is starting to turn, I appreciate that they're, making sure that food isn't wasted, because that's the other part of the picture. Probably what got me sucked in the beginning was, I like the idea of feeding people, but initially was, just seeing food that was getting wasted, and thrown out.
Well, I'm glad you mentioned that, because usually one of the things I'll lead out with, and we haven't touched on yet, is your background. I know you mentioned you've been with Community Kitchen 22 years?
23.
Okay.
As of April 1st.
23. All right. I didn't know if you were taking that year off or not when you were making the reverie.
Yeah. Nope.
So 23 years, you're on the Michael Jordan number.
Yeah.
What's your background, and what kind of led you to kind of reaching that point where you're like, oh, I want to work with Community Kitchen?
Well, I'll kind of go backward. Well, I'll start, it starts in a cornfield in the middle of, the flatlands of central Indiana, detasseling corn. I mean, that was the first place I guess I could relate to like working in the food industry. Granted, it was seed corn, but detasseling corn, which really sets a work ethic up for somebody. But
see, I've heard all about it, and I tried for that to be my first job. I remembered hearing about it. I was eager to make money, start working young, and I was like, oh, 14, what can you do?
Yeah.
And I remembered I called this number, and I never heard back from them, but I was to detassel corn.
They were out detasseling.
And then I've heard, as I've gotten older, about it, and apparently I'm kind of grateful.
It's brutal. It was brutal. I won't go into that. Anyone that knows, but I do not regret doing that at all. But it really started with my upbringing. I mean, I was fortunate to be in a family that we didn't want for anything. We had a bowl of fruit on the kitchen table, and chocolate milk and different things that, I probably at the time took a little for granted, but I also remember having to sit at the table until I ate that last turnip in my bowl. Like, my parents didn't mess around when it came to not wasting food. And I think part of that had to do with them both growing up in New York. They were old New Yorkers, and, growing up again, like Karen Chadwick, kind of during the end of the Depression and struggling, as a family. They both, I think when they dropped out of high school, to both work and help support their families at the time. So fast forward a bit from growing up in childhood to when I got out of school at IU. I came down to Bloomington in 1982, finished in 87, and at the time was working at Big Red Liquors on the east side. Eventually wound up working at the downtown store and managing that. But then became a friend of mine, Jeff Meese, sauntered in, because him and Lenny used to come and buy wine for me at Big Red, and, was kind of bugging me to come and work at this new restaurant that they had opened. Jeff Hamlin, who was the GM at the time, had lived on my dorm floor in Teeter. I'd worked in the cafeteria there. That was my first actual food job, was in the Hoffman Dining Hall in Teeter as the salad bar guy. But yeah, Jeff talked to me about coming to work there. I wound up actually leaving Big Red for a couple of years and going to work at Lenny's about a year after Lenny's opened, when it was on 10th Street. Mm-hmm. And when I was working at Lenny's, there was this little Toyota van. We made our bread fresh each day at Lenny's, and so we would collect our day-old bread, and this kind of wacky guy in this little Toyota van would come and pick up all of our old bread that we had frozen. And I got to talking to him one day, and he said that he worked at the food bank, and I had no idea what that meant. Like, a food but a bank? Like, what type of business is that? And he explained it, and I wound up going there and volunteering. And that I was like, whoa, this is like, felt like my calling. I thought, well, I also need to make money too, because nonprofit world, especially starting out, isn't always that lucrative. There's a reason they call it that. But yeah, I wound up volunteering there for a while, and then wound up driving that little van for a little bit and collecting food. And the food bank at the time was very small. I think there was just the director and assistant director and one other staff person. Then eventually I went back to Big Red and worked opening the Highland Village store. They, wanted me to come back and help them open a store. I was kind of done my time at Lenny's, was ready for a change. And And truth be told, I was going to a lot of concerts back then. So I was traveling around the country, and it just kind of worked out better with vacation and stuff. But I had told the food bank, as I was working 50 hours a week and couldn't volunteer there anymore, that if they ever had a full-time opening, to let me know. And so they did. A few months later, they contacted me, and I went to work there full-time as a warehouse manager and worked there for about 7.5 years. And when I got there, we went out to a big food distributor in town, Natural Foods. It was Tree Life at the time. I think now it's called Kihi. And the food bank was getting a lot of or just starting to get some of their food from them. And basically, it's a nice insight into how the food distribution at distributors works, because most of them only deal in cases. So if something gets damaged or it gets returned, or it winds up back at Tree of Life on the truck, they didn't at the time really have a great mechanism for dealing with that food. So a lot of it was getting thrown out, and they agreed to start just donating that food to the food bank. And so for that 7 years, I was driving the truck sometimes 4 times a day to pick up food out there and distributing it. And that's where I was saw food that was going in the dumpster, and that kind of planted the seed for the future work. And after being there for 7 years, the job came up at Community Kitchen, which actually at the time, Julio, who's now the director of the food bank, was the director at the kitchen. Huh. And I wanted to try more of the direct service. So the food bank generally distributes to agencies that feed the hungry, and I liked the idea of being able to actually work in an agency that feeds people directly. So I took the job as assistant director at the kitchen, first cooking 5 days a week, and then eventually kind of moved into the assistant director, overseeing the kitchen manager and other staff and volunteers.
Wow. Man,
that was a long elevator ride.
No, I was here for it. Yeah, I think we just got to our destination. The No Dishes Podcast is brought to you by VisitBloomington.com. VisitBloomington.com is the best resource for restaurant and culinary information, special events, fun activities, places to stay, and more in our area. We share a similar mission here on the No Dishes Podcast of highlighting local businesses and the people who make our community unique. We can't thank them enough for hopping on board. Check them out at visitbloomington.com to easily plan your next meal, visit, or night out on the town. The Bloomington Town Planner is a community calendar owned and published by local residents John and Sharon Martin. Mailed out to Bloomington homes in December of each year, it features school schedules and community events. And don't forget the coupons at the bottom of the calendar. They'll save you money and help you decide on the next restaurant or retailer to check out here in the Bloomington area. Town Planner also has an online calendar which will be found at townplanner.com. Make sure to sign up for their weekly e-newsletter so you can stay on top of all the fun events going on around town.
No, I mean, you're Bloomington through and through, man. Other than growing up here, essentially.
Yeah, 40 plus years.
Yeah, I was going to say that's some time. Now, are you the longest tenured at Community Kitchen now?
Yeah, I think Vicky's right behind me. I think she just had her 21st anniversary.
Incredible.
So she's a year or two behind me, but we've both been there for a long time. We've seen a lot of growth in what we do. We've had a lot of great staff that have helped us and volunteers get to this point. But
yeah, well, and I know, I mentioned her talking about like the numbers at the end of these brunches for everyone to kind of know what's going on. And yeah, it's a weird thing where we're setting records, we're serving all these people and helping all these people, but it's also kind of sad that need is there. You know, it's kind of both ways, but you're like, hey, we're serving as many as we can, and we're providing this very necessary service for those in our community that need it most.
Yeah. It's, and also, I think with the staff, when you're doing something, your accomplishment at the end of the day is just getting people fed. There hasn't been a day, I think even when we moved to the new facility 12 years ago, I think we were actually only shut down one day. And that was a little bit tricky just with equipment and everything else. But, we've been, open, pandemic again, like where a lot of places closed, we were able to switch to the carry out, method, which we were kind of versed in anyway, because that's what we do at our express location. But I'm glad we were able to get through that. But yeah, it's grown quite a bit. There've been a lot of amazing people that have helped make that happen before me and Vicky, that have put in the years. There are people that, I remember the first cook there, Charlie was there for years, and so many people that were involved. I've got Karen Chadwick's daughter, after she passed away, brought a bunch of her papers and stuff. I have the Newsweek that she read that article in.
Oh, wow.
I have her notes. She took a lot of notes of the first few weeks of the kitchen.
That's fascinating.
And we got some milk from here. We got a couple chickens from here. I mean, it literally was so sweet to see things come together, and a lot of names you'd recognize, like Craig Brenner and Charlotte Zietlow, and people that are well known in Bloomington that were all stepping in to kind of help make it happen. And it's pretty cool to be part of that history.
I love that you brought that in, and that those existed in the first place.
Oh, yeah.
That's got to be. Well, I love diving through the old Penguin stuff and stuff from May's Cafe, and just the history, the lore, especially when you spend so much time somewhere, you get to find out about how it got built and the ins and outs.
Yeah, it's fascinating. I heard one of your recent podcasts, you had somebody on Fisher Farms and
Consider a Burrito.
And Consider a Burrito. Was it them? Somebody mentioned, might have been before that one, somebody mentioned Little Engine, which was where our Community Kitchen Express is.
Okay.
Which was a little, like a White Castle type of place. It was a little burger place. And I mean,
I can't remember
we
who
just
that was.
knocked down that building and rebuilt it.
I was going to say, it looks amazing. Yeah.
Yeah. The old building, old Little Engine building had, pardon the name, but it had served its time. When you pour the mop water out and it goes through the wall into the parking lot, it's time to make a change. But it was also a soul food place for a little while after that.
Yeah, I can't remember who mentioned that. But no, I've been driving to the Boys and Girls Club lately with Lemonade Day donations that I've picked up. So I keep driving by the Express one, and it looks great. It looks awesome.
Yeah, they did a great job with it.
Last thing, we got to talk about restaurants that you like to eat out at.
Oh, yeah.
Now, you knew it was coming.
Yeah, it's the ritual. Man, there have been so many places that I really loved that are gone. It'd be a shame not to mention falafels.
Oh, wow. We haven't had, I don't know if we've had falafels brought up since they closed. Yeah.
Yeah. But, currently.
Well, and I'm fine with the trip down memory lane, too.
Oh,
Don't get me wrong. Yeah.
Well, I think the first place that I really fell in love with was Bruce's Café, which is where Juanita's just closed.
Okay.
That was, and it's probably been mentioned before, but opened at 3 a.m., so for those going out to enjoy a band and some libations was where a lot of people wound up. And then a lot of people that worked the night shift or weird shifts, they were only open from 3 a.m. to 3 p.m. So definitely kind of the breakfast lunch crowd. And Bruce lived upstairs in that building, and it was dimly lit, but cheap breakfast, like $2, maybe $3 breakfast, where you would get bacon and eggs and maybe a pancake and coffee and just a sweet little diner. I remember going to that place quite a bit. Gosh, what else?
Garrett, can you see if that one's on Bloomingpedia? I know you checked out Little Engine.
I bet it is.
The Bruce's Cafe?
Yeah, Bruce's Cafe. I remember actually
I don't think I've heard of
showing up and throwing snowballs at Bruce's window upstairs to wake him up because it was like 3:15.
Let's go. Time to open.
I'm hungry. Currently, it
was open from 1950 to 1989.
Yeah.
Huh. Wow. What a run too.
Yeah. It was a sweet place. Huh. Owned by Kleindorfers.
What's that, Garrett? What's that article? Out of curiosity. Oh, it's gone. Well, they had that would have been fun to read.
Yeah, that was a sweet place. Currently, I mean, I like different things in different places. Little Tibet for yellow curry.
Ooh, yeah.
It's one of my favorite places to go.
Or hopefully he's going to come back on soon. I've been talking to him.
Yeah.
Because he did one of the early ones that was audio only.
Oh, okay.
And I was like, hey, we got to get you back.
Lenny's, I've always loved Lenny's. Even though I worked there for a couple years, that's one kitchen and place I would eat anything that comes out of that place. Uptown, we wind up at Uptown a lot. My wife and I get to go down to New Orleans once or twice a year, and so that's some of our favorite food down there. And Michael and Adam now they do some great twists, a seafood gumbo there. Where else? Farm. Go to Farm for breakfast. Nick's for the turkey burger, and
very underrated turkey burger.
Their submarine sandwich, which I actually just got turned on to a couple years ago, and was like, how did I not know?
Well, you always just go strong.
Well, I didn't realize it had the pizza sauce on it and stuff. So that's pretty incredible.
What an all-star list you're giving us here. I love it. Lenny's all-star. Lenny's Uptown Farm, Nick's.
Who's Your Soulmate? That's my wife and I's kind of a regular. They have those egg dogs. I don't know if you've had one of those.
I knew they had the bulgogi dogs.
Well, the egg dog is like a hot dog, but it's egg instead of. It sounds weird.
No, I'm
if you haven't tried one, probably similar to the bulgogi is the meat. I think the beef. But they're bibimbap, and I mean very fresh and healthy. We have good stuff.
A lot of good Korean places in Bloomington, but I think Who's Your Soulmate is mine. They're so good.
Yeah.
And I love
quick.
Yes.
We live on the near west side, and literally they say 15 minutes, but as soon as I hang up, I drive over there in 5 and it's
ready.
Coming up. Yeah. I just recalled it was the guy from Hinkle's. And actually,
Richie. Yeah. That's right. Yes.
Because he was talking about burger places, and I actually went there after that morning. I listened to that podcast because I was like, oh, man, should have ordered the grilled cheese in retrospect. Sounded pretty crazy.
Richie, that was a great episode, and just what Hinkle's does is so good. And I always love hearing that people listen to the podcast and then go in there.
Oh, yeah.
Because that's what we're here for. We're here to highlight and support, and so that makes me very happy.
Yeah. The food trucks, I often usually will go home at lunch and walk the dog, but he's in daycare on Fridays, and Food Truck Friday is right down the path from the kitchen. So,
I've seen you down there a handful of times.
Yeah, the latest one there I've been hitting up is the Slop Shop, man, because I was born in New Jersey, so we always lamented about not having a good cheesesteak out here, and that guy does a fantastic job. The bread, everything is pretty consistent. Upland, when they first opened, had one on their menu that was really good, but sadly they took it off after a few months.
Now, if they ever, have you ever done one at Chef's Table?
I haven't.
Chef's Table does a very good Philly cheesesteak.
Where Naughty Dog was?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, so definitely
I need to get out there.
And tell them Jordan sent you.
Okay.
And actually, a lot of times I'll say it as a joke. I mean it this time. Because Clark and Tiffany are fantastic. But no, I did a whole, before when this podcast started, I was writing food reviews all the time. Okay. And I wrote one about their Philly cheesesteak. I was like, this is the first good Philly cheesesteak I found. Yeah. And then Slop Shop came along, and McKinley owned the Sinkhole, he owned Fairfax before. I tried. I was like, dude, so good. Like, the fries are the best, like, plain fries I've ever had.
Yeah.
They're like Penn Station fries, but like better. Like I don't count like farm fries or tack because those are all like seasons and flavors. I'm just talking plain fries. The way Slop Shop does them is perfect.
Yeah.
Perfect. But the one note I had with McKinley was the bread. And he took it and because he cares.
Oh yeah.
And he changed the bread.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
And so it's like, and just the fact that he wasn't like, no, or like, thanks. But like, no, he was like, okay, I see it. I know what you're talking about. He wants to have the best product he can have.
Yeah.
And man, Slop Shop, buddy, I haven't had it in a few months. I'm about to break that seal.
Yeah. Rush Hour Station. I got to give them a plug. They're another good one with the Korean barbecue sandwich, the banh mi.
The banh mi, yeah. Okay.
And their fries, actually, which are just basic, kind of the bumpy fry. I don't know what the term is. Crinkle cut.
Yeah.
Just simple, but sometimes they do a little salt, pepper, whatever on them. Those are good. They remind me of growing up. Like that was how my mom did fries.
I feel like you're the second person actually that has mentioned their fries because I remember the first time, like, that's kind of weird, but now I'm like, well, now I got to do it because I've had Rush Hour. They came to some of their original Food Truck Fridays with that van, at the old stand, and now I don't think that van has moved in the last 10
years. It hasn't. Yeah, I pondered that when because we got a food truck at the kitchen.
Oh, I know, yeah.
Which is we just serve out of it, thank God. So there's no cooking on it involved. It gets hot enough. Like, man, kudos to people that do the food truck thing because it's a labor of love.
Oh my God. Yeah. Every time we talk about Food Truck Friday, I'm like, dude, it's the people in the trucks. They're working crazy hours because we do set up, tear down, but they got to get prepped and get ready, get out there, do a long day, and then go home or the commissary and clean and long days.
Yeah. Yeah. I've got a new appreciation for that. And also just keeping a truck going.
Yeah.
Because it's a learning experience. There's a reason you don't see them in single digit winters in the Midwest. But it's been a learning curve, and the food truck works for us. I mean, again, because like similar to the food truck people, you're not tied down to a spot. When we start looking at what I call semi-rural places on the west side of Bloomington, Leonard Springs, or out in Ellettsville even, if you have a brick and mortar, a lot of people that we serve, the biggest hurdle is transportation and getting to where the food is. So our truck's working 8.5 to 9 hours a day right now during the summer, serves lunches to kids in midday, and then goes out in the evening and serves people on the west side in Ellettsville. So right now it's probably doing between 200 and 250 meals a day.
Just out of the truck. That's nuts.
Yeah.
What's the setup like inside the truck? Is it just kind of hot holding?
Yeah, it's basically a steam table with 3 bays and a holding cabinet, a 2-door, reach in, a freezer reach in, which you don't want to hear this, but we just use it for storage. We don't give out ice cream, obviously. We're just serving meal, but we got the freezer, and of course the required teeny 3-basin sink and hand sink. But yeah, we're just set up to serve out of it, and it works just like our express location. So all the food's made at our big location on Rogers, and then we transport it and just serve at those other locations.
Dude, what a incredible, cool, necessary operation.
Yeah,
I love just to hear it. Yeah,
thanks. I'm obviously
awesome,
excited about it. I've been doing it a long time, but it's the nice thing about doing this type of work in Bloomington is you can try things and do things and kind of directly get the feedback and see how it works. I think we try to sometimes in Bloomington, restaurants included, try to pull off things we see in larger urban areas, but you don't always have the crowd to sustain it.
We're like a tweener right there.
Yeah. I mean, people are always game for things and supporting things, but you have to kind of, figure out where that balance is, and doing something that's unique, but that people are going to support, and people support us, thank goodness. So that's the only way we can do it.
That's great. Well, check them out on the website. Go support them. Volunteer, donate money. There's a million different ways. And then the community, the brunches we talked about, quarterly brunches, amazing. But mainly we want to push Chef's Challenge.
Yeah.
August 3rd at the Woolery Mill. Tickets will be on sale soon.
Get the tickets. The event starts a little earlier. It starts about 5, so it's not too late of a thing.
That makes sense on a Sunday.
The chefs have an hour, to prepare that amount of food, 104 or 5, servings of whatever dish they come up with. Supports local farmers. I mean, I like to always focus on the secret ingredient, who we get it from, who grew it. Maybe like last year, have them potentially as a judge. So, they get to see, like I know last year was carrots, and it was great for him to get to see, his food. Last year was
2 years ago was carrots.
Yeah, 2 years ago was carrots. Last year was apples, right?
Was it apples, Garrett? Do you remember?
I don't remember what it was last year.
It was peaches. It was peaches.
Oh, that's right. I remember.
Yeah,
okay.
It was peaches. Should have remembered. There's been a lot of different things. It's amazing what we have.
Your
locally.
recall during this sit down has been great. You're like, this year it was these chefs. And I'm just like, damn, Tim's got this
Chester's
down.
Peaches from down south. And it was a good year for peaches. So
there you go. Was that part of the reason that you made it? Yeah.
Yeah. I haven't decided yet, but I need to decide soon. I like to wait and kind of see what's out there at the market. I go to the market every week and kind of check and see what's going on. It's been a pretty good season. We've had a good amount of rain, maybe too much to some degree, but we'll see what's going to be highlighted this year.
I'm excited. Can ice cream be a secret ingredient? That might be tough.
It might be tough, but people have made, last year there was I don't know if it was an ice cream or you call it a sorbet.
Probably a sorbet.
Peach,
yeah.
Thing. Kind of hard to hold it, in the hot kitchen to temp in order to get it on the plates and to the people.
Yeah. Well, but, I've seen it in the Chopped. They're going to the blast freezer and doing this or that.
Yeah. See, we haven't had a blast freezer we had one last year at Ivy Tech.
Yeah.
We're back to the stove and probably a little propane skillet situation.
I think that adds to the fun though. It's like, this is what you got, make it happen. And you get to just, you mentioned what Eric Bueno did with the coals and just see the different techniques and what they do under these certain constraints. And then just this new setup sounds cool. Being at a great venue, getting to wander around a little bit, get up out of your seat, get on some silent auction stuff. I'm really excited. And if I'm going to be there if I can. I just don't know what we're going to have to do the day after taste.
What condition you'll be in.
Or what condition Kirkwood will be
worn off. Yeah.
And what I need to do.
You might be picking up trash.
I have a feeling I will. Tim, thanks for everything that you and the Community Kitchen do, man. Really appreciate it. Cheers.
Appreciate you having me.
What another fun episode, huh, gang? Thanks to Visit Bloomington, as always, for being our presenting sponsors. Thanks to Everywhere Science for this cool sign. Nate and team hooked it up. And thanks to you for watching so we can keep doing this. See you next Tuesday morning with another new episode of the No Dishes Podcast. This episode of the No Dishes Podcast was recorded, edited, and produced by Garrett Portinga of Green Hat Media in beautiful downtown Bloomington, Indiana.
No Dishes Media.
No Dishes Media.